that is me, a cute little baby. So yes, and that's my grandmother. And I'm privileged to be born into this family because this grandmother of mine, when she was tiny, she was abandoned by her stepmother, and her grandmother raised her, and she became the first woman graduate to get a B.Ed degree in a small village called Guntur. However, not all was well. It was a horror house somehow, my 20 years of childhood. But that's the boring part. The fun part is that my subconscious blanked out full 20 years of my existence with a few things that was left behind. A lot of abuse. Now, very sad baby, terrible in school, but in college, I figured out one big lesson. Not a good student, but you know how sometimes the bar is so low that you're able to get into a decent college? That taught me that the only thing you need to do to stop what you don't want is to say no. And that I did. And the abuse stopped. Rebellion started. In the meantime, my mother lost her husband, my father, and she was given a choice by her in-laws. Either look and live like a conventional widow and then you can come and live with us, or take the high road. She chose the high road. I figured that I have all these superstars with me. I had to find my own high road. And so I did. My first job, I saw what a computer looks like. I saw where the power button was. And I was enamored by it. I played with it, I mastered it, and I decided, after looking around, everybody was going into software. I decided software is going to be. And how did I get into software? Because I didn't have any software degree. I figured these kick-ass programmers are great at their work, but they're terrible at their English. So I entered a software company as a technical writer, edited their bad English, and then went on to learn software myself. And years later, I launched startups. But another story about that later. In the meantime, software, I am hugely grateful for, because it took me places. It took me to America, where I discovered that there was so much more to life. I bartended, I went to school, I learned filmmaking, managed to make a few award-winning films. I was like, cool, this is a cool life, thank you, America. And then I come back to India, and I had to get something going to make a living. So I got into NDTV as a camera person. You know, filmmaker, easy to do camera, but that was another huge can of worms. But anyway, learned the ropes. Years later, I went on to launch India's first international television channel and left it as a managing producer. And a couple of stints later, I moved to Goa. In Goa, I relived my childhood. Sadly, lockdown happened, and all the cool things that I wanted stopped. People were not getting food to eat, and I wanted my sourdough bread. I didn't have the heart to ask for it, decided to learn baking it myself, and then started an agonizing 6 months of sleepless nights over getting my first bread to rise. And then one day, it rose. It looked great. It tasted great. My friends loved it. They wanted me to bake more. I started baking more and more of these breads. People wanted to pay me for it. I was like, thank you, Goa. You know, I now have another way of making some income and make my ends meet. It was a happy journey after that. I baked all kinds of things with sourdough, and this honeymoon with sourdough continued until one day when my grandmother died. That kind of put a little bit of, sent me into a limbo, because I was still registering the loss. And I figured that I can't live in this limbo. I had to get myself into a situation where I was really challenging myself. So I decided next month I'm going to open a cafe. Because next month my grandmother, would she have been alive, she would have turned 90. And then Cafe Simply Sourdough was born. Hey, come on, Simply Sourdough. There you go. This is a concept cafe where we tell people what is sourdough, why is it good for you, and we make people taste a lot of different breads. Everything we do is made of sourdough. I promise to the world that I will not use maida or any refined substance. I will not use yeast or any raising agent. I will make breads only with flour and water, and that is how bread should taste like. Lots of people come for tasting because, I like to make people taste. They actually go back well fed and they do buy a few breads. But We started doing a lot of workshops. Children loved coming to the cafe because, you know, they were happy to get their treats. And there you go, youngest customer, frequent customer. Parents were happy because children were happy. And then we wanted to spread the sourdough word further. We want to tell more and more people how good sourdough is. We started doing workshops. Then we started also doing a lot of, these are the workshops, and the people ranged from 70-year-olds to 18-year-olds. I'm getting it backward, but you get the point, right? And then the word spread. More and more people wanted us to bake breads for them. We started catering to events, and thus the story continues. At this point, I need to get a cue from the slide, so I don't know what I'm talking about. So the idea was that people loved our breads. More and more love started coming in. We were just exploding with people's love for sourdough. And Goa completely embraced us with open arms. So thank you, Goa. It's been such a pleasure to be mentioned, talked about. It gives us so much more encouragement. We are a woman-run cafe. Everybody working there is a woman. So the next big question is, what next? Well, I don't know. I'm thinking I'll act in a movie. So if there's any filmmaker over here who, you know, I'm available. Until such time, you're all invited to come to Cafe Simply Sourdough, where we're singing and dancing most of the time with the music out there. We're eating and we're drinking, and while we're doing all of that, I will then think with you what to do next. Thank you.